Welcome to Mac Power Users. I'm David Sparks, joined by my co-host and friend Stephen Hackett. How you doing, Stephen?
I'm good, David. How are you?
Good. You got a little bit of a thing in your voice today, but you're soldiering on.
That's right. The show must go on.
It must go on. We're recording this just to kind of give you a little like time travel podcasting. We're recording this as we're both about to step on an airplane. And when the show releases, we will both be on the airplane coming back. So it is Relay FM's 10th anniversary week. Once again, I just want to call out, I guess if you were there last night, you should have come and seen us. How's that work? How about if you were there last night, if you have a time machine, you should go back and see us last night. How's that?
There may be some other things we want you to do with that power. So let us know.
Did you ever read about when Stephen Hawking published a letter saying that he was having a meeting for time travelers last Tuesday?
No, that's really good though.
He did that. He had like a big party on a Tuesday night, and then 2 weeks later he published an invitation to time travelers, and he never did tell how that went. I wonder, right? Okay, we are the Mac Power Users. Actually, we do talk about technology and Apple technology on our show when I'm allowed to be reined in. You can tell Stephen isn't feeling 100%. Usually he wouldn't let me get away with all that nonsense, but here we are.
Yeah, I've lost all control is what's happening.
There we go. Before we go, I do have an announcement that's important. The Productivity Field Guide got released in January, and to me, it's like the most important thing I've done as Mac Sparky. It's not as techy as some of the other stuff I've done, but it's been very successful. People have really enjoyed it. We've been doing meetups even after the product finish. I still do calls sometimes with the people that bought it, and I'm very, very happy that it's helping people. It's my kind of take on productivity. It's not, the secret is none of this is that hard. Just figure out what's important and figure out a way to do it. There you go. All productivity summarized in this sentence. But it went well, and I want to do something with it. One of the statements I made in the book that came along with it is like I kind of had the idea of the system when I was young, but I ignored it for like 20 years until I got serious, and I wish I had figured it out when I was young. So I'm going to make good on that promise. I'm doing something called Productivity Summer Camp. It's a free program for high school and college kids who want to go through the Productivity Field Guide with me. I'm trying to give something back. I hope that a few kids and young adults do this and it helps them. I don't know if it will or not. Either way, look, it's out there. If you're interested, there's a blog post listed in the show notes. Go check it out. If you know somebody young that would be interested, please pass it along. And I explain all the details there. I'm excited about this. I'm hoping that I get some energetic young people that are interested in this stuff. I know it's hard in the modern age with all the distractions, and I don't know. This is something I'm proud of, and I hope it works out. And this is the first time I'm doing it, and I've just done a really bad job of explaining it on the show. But go look at the blog post, and you'll see what I mean.
This is super cool. I know you and I have talked a little bit about this, and I was so pleased to read the blog post. This is right up your alley. It's like this maximum Mac Sparky in my mind. I absolutely love the idea, and I think people will get a lot out of it. So definitely, if you're in that age bracket, or you know someone who is, please send them this post because I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I'm already hearing from people who want in, and I'm really excited about it, and I hope to pass a few nuggets along. Today on More Power Users, which is the ad-free extended version of our show, we're going to be checking in on Apple Intelligence. There's a lot of news around it, and there's a lot of smoke, but no fire yet, and we have thoughts. So we're going to talk about that today on the ad-free extended version of the show. If you want to learn about that, you can sign up at relay.fm/MPU. It's a huge part of our support to keep the lights on around here. And if you are a More Power User supporter, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
It's a feedback episode. It's always fun.
Yeah, and there's a lot of it, and a lot of feedback and thoughts. These are some of my favorite episodes because, we try to focus on one thing most episodes. This gives us a chance to free range our tech a bit and to spotlight some of our very smart listeners. Starting with Max, he says, do you have any tips on how to manage media in messages? It's a common family tech support issue because photos and video take up a lot of storage space. I'm still not sure if deleting a video from one device deletes it from that device only or from the iCloud entirely. I think the bloat in the Messages app is a big problem for a lot of people, and most people don't even realize that that is a problem.
Yeah, honestly, I was really surprised when I dug into this on my own devices. So on my phone, I've got 32 gigabytes of space dedicated to media in Messages. And then most of that is photos, but there's video. There's 700 megabytes of GIFs in there, which tracks for me. And you can manage this in settings, general iPhone storage. I did have lots of crashes in this part of the settings app trying to figure this out on iOS 17, not even on the beta. But Max is right, and you're right. This is a problem. 32 gigs is a lot of space. I mean, if you buy a base level iPhone, that's half of it, right? Really easily. And basically, Apple leaves it up to you to manage. You can go in there and individually delete photos or videos. But how are you going to do that with 7 gigabytes of photos? Doing them individually? Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And it does seem to me that if you delete an image from one of your devices, it is removed from the others. Now, I say that with a little hesitation because that's based on my own testing, because Apple's support documentation around this is also honestly pretty thin. And my sort of personal preference would be that Apple would offer something like the feature it does for photos, where iCloud offloads these files from your device and then they're downloaded on demand. That would be fine by me. I want this history, but clogging up my phone and my iPad and my Mac with a bunch of stuff that honestly I probably don't need is it's a bit silly. And this feels like a hangover from like the SMS days and not really a reflection on how people use Messages today.
Okay, for comparison, I've got 8.74 gigabytes, and you have 700 megabytes of GIFs. I have 100. So that seems about right. Steve, for folks who don't know, Steven loves GIFs. You just love them, right?
I do. I also like pronouncing it the other way.
Yeah, I don't like pronouncing it at all. But you're right. So a couple things. I think if you have iCloud sharing turned on your Messages, then that answers the question Max answered. Does it delete from all devices? Because iMessage, what do they call iMessage?
And Messages in the cloud, I think.
Messages in the cloud, yes. I think if you have Messages in the cloud, and which I'm assuming you do, Stephen, yes. I think that means a deletion on one device means deletion everywhere else. If you don't, I expect that you have to deal with it separately. The fact that they don't have more general controls of like delete all photos or, give me a picker to move them to photos. It just seems to me like this is some low-hanging fruit in the operating system that needs to be picked. I don't know why they haven't done it because you're right. This is probably the biggest source of excess storage on most people's phones that they don't know about. And I think that needs to be handled. So to answer Max's question, I am pretty aware of this. So as a power user, my wife and I share our photos. Both of us, we just have that thing turned on in Photos where anything we take shows up in the joint photo library that showed up a year or two ago. So when she shares a picture with me, I don't think about it. I know I've already captured it. But when my kids share a picture with me, I don't have shared photos with them. So I pay close attention. And when they share like a cute picture of the dog or a picture of each other or something that I think I want to keep, I actually save it to Photos right there at the moment when I look at it. And I've just developed that habit. That's as a power user. I think the non-power users are never going to develop that habit. And it's kind of sad because they think they have the photo and they do until they run out of space or, they delete it or something. It's not backed up the way an Apple Photos library is backed up. So I think it's an exposure for data loss. It's definitely an abuse of space on your device. And, we don't have a good answer for you, Max, except that this is a problem that needs to be addressed. Okay. On that happy note, Chris wrote in, I recently had a thought that I wish my iPhone and Apple Watch were better productivity companion devices, much like how the iPad is touted to be an excellent accessory to keep to the side of your Mac while working. Outside of standby, what are some ways that my iPhone can be useful at my desk? And what are some productivity tricks for my watch that can tempt me to leave the house without even bringing my phone? I would love to hear your takes and advice. You want to go first?
Sure. The thing that stood out to me immediately is what Chris wrote in about, which is standby. And I think people sort of underrate this feature. You do have to have a certain type of stand, right? So your phone is horizontal and charging. But I've come to really, really like standby. I do wish in some areas there was a bit more customization available. But most of the time, if I'm at my desk, my phone is in standby mode with a big clock and my next calendar event. Those are kind of my go-tos with standby. I like the
Yeah.
photos a lot. I think that's a lot of fun too. But I kind of like glancing over and be like, okay, I've got 20 minutes until I got my next call or meeting or whatever. Past that, I think I would look at if your phone supports it. Apps that use live activities, I have found to be pretty useful when I'm working at my Mac. So things like, for me, Timery having live activities. If there's a sporting event that I'm keeping up with but not watching because I'm at work, that can be useful as well. And I think everyone kind of has their own selection of apps that support live activities that make sense for them. But there may be something there for you to look through.
Yeah. I'll just say that standby really is my, kind of sidecar productivity use of the iPhone. It really, I've got this big screen. I don't really need more screen space, but having a clock and the next appointment, and I use the same two widgets you do, is I've really come to get used to that. Like just glance down to see what's coming up and what time it is. That works for me. And as a result, I feel like it's become more useful at my desk than it ever has been before that. I remember I used to like put Timery on and like try and pick timers on my phone rather than on the Mac, but Timery got good enough on the Mac. It needed it. And then I switched over. I've been using timing lately because it's just so good about automatically tracking for me that I'm not even using Timery right now. So, yeah, I just don't really have a good answer for you on that, Chris. This would be a good one, I think, to sound off in the forums. Mac Power, was it talk.macpowers.com if you have a good use for the iPhone. The watch, on the other hand, I do have a tip for the watch, and that is put a timer complication on your watch and use it at your desk all day. It's like the best productivity tip. Everybody who like gets into this productivity stuff eventually bumps into the Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro, I think, is what is the word for tomato in Italian. And some guy took a tomato shaped kitchen timer and came up with the idea of, hey, if I just put this on 30 minutes and worked until it went off, I would actually get some work done. And when they discover that, they're like, "This is amazing!" It's like one of those little hacks that actually works.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a tomato-shaped timer, but I have an Apple Watch with a timer on my wrist, and I run that thing all day, like all day. Like we were getting ready for the show today, and I gave myself 45 minutes to review and revise the outline, and I put a timer on my wrist. It went off. I got up got a new glass of water, kissed my wife, and then came in here to make a show. It's like the timer on your watch is perfect because it taps your wrist when it's done. It's not intrusive. And I won't bang on about it, but if you got an Apple Watch, the timer is really nice.
I think that's really good advice. For me, the watch doesn't really doesn't really play in here very much. For me, I almost want the watch to be sort of floating above the rest of the other stuff. So like I have very few notifications coming in to the watch. It's really, for me, critical that the watch doesn't interrupt me. And I feel like
Okay.
the watch is really good at that if you're not careful.
Yeah. Well, I like the interruptions on the timers. I also Depending, I'm always experimenting with block scheduling. I do it sometimes analog, sometimes digital. But when I do it digital, one of the big payoffs is you can have your watch tap your wrist when it's time to move to the next block, and you don't lose track of time. Just the other day, I had a call scheduled and I missed it because I didn't have an alert set. My wrist didn't tap me, so I just blew right past it. So I find it useful for that kind of stuff. I actually find myself using the iPad less and less anymore as a supplementary device, partly because of standby mode. I used to always keep my iPad, rolling right underneath my Mac monitor because it gave me appointments and time and stuff like that. And I don't do that as often anymore. I have it here, but I don't keep it on 24/7 like I used to because of standby. So there you go, Chris. Hope that helps. Nano Texture iPad Pro. Edward wrote in, my 2 cents on the iPad Pro with Nano Texture. I love it. I've seen the reviews, and the ordinary glass provides more color and detail. However, for me, the ability to read text without glare is amazing. I purchased 13-inch with 1 TB. I'm an attorney and have specific projects coming up in the next 2 years using the iPad with Devon Think and Scrivener. Edward is not alone. We've been doing meetups in the Max Sparky Labs, and there are multiple labs members who did the same thing. They bought the nano textured 1 TB, 13-inch. And to a man, they all love it. They always make me feel bad because they're all like, oh, you missed out. This is the one. And it does seem like people who bought the nano texture really like it. Hopefully it holds up. I mean, I think that's the one question we have because it's a new thing, but I'm sure it will. Apple's good at that stuff. And Federico, he has one too, right?
He does. He picked up, or maybe it's his review unit from Apple, a nano texture one, and he's really spoken highly of it on his shows. Federico has this awesome balcony at his place that kind of overlooks like a swimming pool. It's beautiful, and during the summer he worked out there a lot, and he's really spoken highly about it doing such a good job at sort of neutralizing reflection that he can now work outside in parts of the day that he never was able to before because of the reflection issue.
Yeah. Do you have regrets?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't have the need to work outside very often on an iPad. I do work outside some, but I'll just take my MacBook Pro and we've got plenty of shade in the backyard. So I don't know if I have a problem that it would really solve necessarily. But I'm so happy people like them. I was definitely a little dubious about it when it first came out. Like you said, there still probably are some questions about long-term reliability, although I'm sure Apple's got that figured out. But I feel okay not having done it, but maybe next time. I should also say I have not seen one in person. And so take what I said with a grain of salt. Having not handled one, I feel okay. Now, if someone hands me one this week that has it and I feel bad, then, we'll see.
I think they're really nice. I spent significant time in an Apple store recently for an unrelated thing. It was somebody else. I was there with them. So I hung out at the iPad table, and I think they're really cool. And there is just a little bit of bite to the pencil, which I like. I think the pencil feels a little better on them. The complaints about it washing out colors, I'm not good enough at perceiving that to recognize it. At the same time, making you buy a terabyte one to get that feature to me was where I soured on it. I don't need a terabyte iPad, and so I never really had it in the cards. I really am happy with my 11-inch. We're going to talk about stuff we're bringing to London soon, and that plays a big role for me. I do kind of miss my 13-inch, I'll be honest with you. But we'll see, in a year or two, they'll be on sale or something. I'll probably at some point get a second iPad because like for sheet music and stuff. But but for now, I'm an 11-inch iPad guy. I'm super happy with it. And I don't like look at my shiny one and say, oh, I wish this was matte. It's okay. It's fine. But I'm very happy that everybody that's buying them seems very impressed with it and enjoying it.
Yeah. And I assume that Apple is subsidizing some of the cost with that 1 terabyte option, right? To help offset the screen.
Yeah.
And maybe if these are popular enough, they'll be able to bring that down. So maybe next time around, you get it with a 512 or maybe on all of them. And it's just maybe a small upcharge like the cellular is. I don't know. It really feels like the tying it to 1 terabyte thing is something they had to do. It doesn't feel strategically that good of a move for Apple, but I think next time we'll see more of that story unfold. This episode of Mac Power Users is brought to you by Ecamm. Ecamm Live is the leading video production and live streaming studio built for the Mac. Ecamm does all aspects of video, not just live streaming. It's perfect for simplifying a bunch of your workflows. It's easy enough to get started quickly, but powerful enough that you can create just about anything with video, and you do it all with the Ecamm app. The thing that impresses me most about Ecamm is that folks building it really understand what the Mac can do, so they take advantage of the Mac's rich multimedia ecosystem to really bring your projects to life. Whether you're streaming, recording, podcasting, or presenting, everything's there in Ecamm, including support for multiple cameras and screen sharing, and a live camera switcher lets you direct the show in real time. Stand out from the crowd with high-quality video. Add logos, titles, lower thirds, and graphics. Share your screen, drop in video clips, bring on interview guests, use a green screen, and so much more. Ecamm Live can do it all. And there's some super exciting news. Ecamm for Zoom is now available for everyone on the pro level plan. So you can automatically send Ecamm's live audio and video output into a Zoom meeting, Zoom webinar, or Zoom event. And add up to 8 Zoom participants as camera sources in your broadcast or recording. Plus, you can automatically create individual participant audio and video recordings and add Zoom chat messages to your broadcast or recording as text overlays. Ecamm's members are entrepreneurs, marketing professionals, podcasters, educators, musicians, church leaders, bloggers, and content creators of all kinds. In order to stay relevant these days, you have to show up on camera. And the good news is Ecamm makes video easy. And it's 30% off right now because summer is the best time of year to learn a new skill. So act now because just like summer, this deal won't last forever. Go to Ecamm, Ecamm, ecamm.com. That's ecamm.com. Go check it out now. Our thanks to Ecamm for the support of the show.
More feedback. Making Venn diagrams in freeform. There is a thread about this in the Mac Power Users forum with Venn diagrams from Clark. You want to share it?
Yeah. So Clark put this together. With a Venn diagram, the transparency is really important. So you can see the overlap in the diagram. And Clark's point is that the color picker used in freeform, which is not the standard Mac OS color picker. It's like the iPad one because Catalyst, I guess, is used to build freeform. So you get the iPad stuff. But in there is an opacity setting. There's also one in the standard Mac control. But you can set your opacity down. And in his example, he brings it down to about 50%. And that's enough to show the overlap, but still preserve some color. Clark also used the feature where the outline is still 100%. And then the fill is 50. So you can really see how it's structured. And I just put this in here because I think it looks really nice. And I would imagine Venn diagramming is would be a pretty useful thing in a lot of freeform use cases. And because it's the iPad color picker, it's a little bit different than the Mac. So I thought it'd be a good thing to highlight.
I know this comes up on occasion, but any new uses for freeform in your life?
Not really. I mean, it is useful for the couple of things that I need it for, but I'm also just not a thinker in that way. Like I tend to, if I'm going to work on something big, I tend to think in text outline much more than sort of a visual flow type of thinker.
I am a visual thinker and I like it, except I do feel like it's still a little hard for the input. Like I bought one of those new Studio Neat. They make these scratch pads that have adhesive on the back, like a sticky note, but it's bigger, so you can like do diagrams on it and stick it on the wall. But it's the size of a piece of paper, and instead of a sticky note. And using that, I bought a pad of those, and I've been using them. I'm like, man, I want freeform to be this fast for me. And even on an iPad, it's not. So I feel like I'd like to see them improve input on it. And I still am frustrated with it in Vision Pro. It's like it's so good. The output is so good for Vision Pro, but the input is so difficult. So yeah, I hope that one is getting attention. I
Yeah.
hope it's not one of those apps that Apple makes and just kind of like leaves in the corner. Because I feel like they could do this. They could actually make this really good if they just, give it the support it needs.
Yeah, I hope they do. And I think you're right about the Vision OS version. The input is just it adds a lot of friction. I mean, you spoke about maybe on our last feedback episode about using an iPad and the Vision
Yeah.
Pro together for freeform. Like that's wild, but probably not should not be required.
It's the best solution currently, but it's not good enough. And I don't know. I mean, we're at such a crossroads with some of the stuff like artificial intelligence, and like I could see a future where we have a conversation with an artificial intelligence about something like a topic like Clark wrote about in his post, talking about management styles or whatever, and then you say, generate me a board on this, with Venn diagrams and charts and whatnot, and AI being able to do that. And I wonder if that is ultimately the solution for virtual environments, is having AI do the creation for you. But it's still a very different process, because to me, the process of getting the pencil, writing on the paper, and diagramming this stuff out with my hand is a way to internalize it to my brain. I don't know. I just feel like this is a big challenge, but Apple's good at those kinds of challenges if they give it the effort. But this is one to me that is waiting for an answer. Okay, how's that for vague? We got an email from Ryan saying, "Hey, do you all wear your watch at night?" I like that he said y'all. I think it was for you, Steve.
That's good.
Do y'all wear your watch at night? And then that came in. Then like 2 days later, 9to5Mac ran an article. Apple's VP of the doctor VP for Apple, the lady who's in charge of, I think it's a lady in charge of the medical stuff, said, we can get much better data on your health if you wear it at night. So there is kind of a push right now to wear your Apple Watch at night. And I just got wondering, Stephen, do you do that?
I do. Most nights, actually, I sleep track. I use Sleep Plus Plus. Auto Sleep is also available, but
Yeah.
I've done it, for a long time. And the Ultra makes it easier because the battery life is wild. You do have to kind of manage your battery on some watches.
Yeah, it's hard for me to do, but I haven't been sleeping as good lately as I normally do, and I want to get data on it. So I've been trying to wear the watch more often. I had the weirdest dream the other day, Stephen. We got this trip coming up, and I was dreaming that I had a trial starting the week after I got back from London, and my brain was like going, "Oh, you got to get your witnesses, you got to get your pre-trial motions filed." I think I was going through my checklists and kind of like winding myself up, and I woke up and I'm like, "Oh wait, you don't do that anymore. It's okay."
It's like you go to school with no clothes on for the test.
Yeah, but it's so weird. So weird. I mean, come on, it's been 2 years. Brain, get past that. But either way, I want to get a better job tracking my sleep. And it's always been kind of hard for me. Part of it might be the weight of the Apple Watch Ultra. It's a heavy watch.
It is.
And it makes me think, when you hear the rumors about like an Apple fitness ring or a fitness bracelet, that would be good for nighttime, I think. But at the same time, when I do wear the watch to bed, it's not like I wake up in the night saying, "Oh, I have this thing on my wrist." It doesn't, for me, it's more about the habit and the battery management, and I think the band management. So facing this challenge recently, what I've been trying to do, I am running Sleep Plus Plus. I'm also in the bag for David underscore, because I just love the simplicity of his applications. And the nice thing is the Apple monitoring stuff happens at the same time. So you kind of get the basics from Apple. You get the higher level of data from David. but no biggie. You can run them both. But I changed the band out. So I vary my band often, and I have a bunch of these ultra bands. I have, the cool one that looks like you're going to go on a hike, and the one you're going to go scuba diving. But at night I wear a crappy old woven Velcro band I think I got off Amazon, but it's very, very breathable.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it on a little looser than I think I need it before I go to bed. So that was my first tip. Second is battery management. And you just have to, even with the Ultra, you got to charge it during the day in order to make sure you get through the night. So when I do my shutdown at the end of the day, I take the watch off. By then, I've already got 12 hours log standing anyway. I put it on the stand here at my desk, and I set a 1-hour timer on it. And the timer is super important because if not, I'll go to bed and forget to put it on. And but that's my handy tips to start collecting data on your sleep tracking.
One thing I'll add to the battery management thing is that some Apple Watches can fast charge. You got to have the right Apple Watch puck and the right power adapter. I'll put a document in the show notes. People can find it. But if you can set your watch up to fast charge, it makes the battery management much easier.
I need to figure that out and get that on my desk. All right. So thank you for that. I will read that myself. Mike wrote in, trying to decide between standard AirPods and AirPods Pro. Advice. Yeah, okay, Mike. I think the first piece of advice I'd give you is go to an Apple store and try them on, because there are a bunch of people for whom the AirPods don't work in their ear. And then there's another bunch of people for whom the AirPods Pro don't work in their ear. And you can change the little cups in the AirPods Pro, but go to the store and kind of get fitted and shake your head like a crazy man and see which one feels better in your ear. Because I think that is really the first point. It doesn't matter what the feature set is. If they don't stick in your ear or you don't like the way they feel, that is a deciding factor.
Yeah, I think that's right. The AirPods Pro with those silicon tips really can fit a wider range of people. I think you also should look at the features you want. If something like transparency mode or noise cancellation's really important to you, obviously you're going to be leaning towards the pros. They are more expensive, right? But you do get those additional features. For me, I used the standard AirPods for a long time and didn't upgrade to the AirPods Pro until maybe even the 2s came out. But I've been using the AirPods Pro 2 now for quite a while and really like them. My hang up at first was it took some adjustment for me to use the silicon tips, the hard plastic that it fit in my ear with the AirPods, stayed in my ears, which was nice. And I didn't like the feeling of the silicon tips, but I've gotten used to it. And I really like those additional features. I like that the AirPods Pro offer some sweat and water resistance. It's low, but there's some, and the regular AirPods don't have that. And that's also important to me as someone who uses these things working out.
For me, I actually have both. I did get a pair of the AirPods Pro 2. My day-to-day AirPods are the normal ones, and I rarely use them both at the same time. Maybe it goes back to being a lawyer and making lots of calls and stuff, but I often during the day will have a single AirPod in my ear and be listening to a book on tape or a podcast or something when I'm doing housework around the house. And then I've got the other ear open if there's anything going on. So that's kind of like my standard. When I garden, I do the same thing. I have one in. Rarely do I use the normal AirPods 2 at a time, which is kind of weird. But when I travel and go out, I like the AirPods Pro. So around the house, I've got my around the house AirPods and my outside the house AirPods. The noise cancellation AirPods Pro should not be understated. It is really impressive for something so small. It used to be when I went on an airplane, I had a pair of Bose Quiet Comforts, I think they were called. And they were massive, I rage bought them once because I was on an airplane with a screaming baby next to me for like 4 hours, and I went in the airport and I just bought them. I couldn't do it anymore. But every time you travel, it's like a thing. And now I've got the AirPods Pro 2s. They're just as good and they fit in my pocket. I'll be using them today. The head tracking stuff in AirPods Pro, I don't care about any of that stuff. I don't use it. I do like the transparency stuff. And I do wonder, as I'm getting older, I'm dealing with tinnitus issues, but maybe AirPods could help me sometimes hear better. But in general, I use AirPods Pro out the front door and AirPods around the house. So there's an answer for you, Mike. Buy them both. Apple would love that.
It's a very Mac Sparky answer.
Yeah, isn't it though? Isn't it? This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by Squarespace. Go to squarespace.com/MPU today to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using the code MPU. Squarespace has been a longtime sponsor of the Mac Power Users, and I love reading their ads because I am a Squarespace customer. I think they are an outstanding service. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, you can stand out with a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything, your products, services, and even the content you create. Squarespace has got everything you need, all in one place, all on your terms. You can start a completely personalized website with their guided design system called Squarespace Blueprint. You can choose from professionally curated layout and styling options to build a unique online presence from the ground up, tailored to your brand or business and optimized for every device. And then easily launch your website and get discovered fast with integrated, optimized SEO tools so you can show up more often to more people and grow the way you want. You can also integrate flexible payments to make checkout seamless for your customers with simple but powerful payment tools. Accept credit cards, PayPal, and Apple Pay, and in eligible countries offer customers the option to buy now and pay later with Afterpay and ClearPay. And if you want an email campaign, Squarespace does that too. You can make outreach automatic with email marketing tools that engage your community, drive sales, and simplify audience management. Introduce your brand or business to unlimited new subscribers with flexible email templates, then create custom segments to send targeted campaigns. Built-in analytics measure the impact of every send. Squarespace has ended in a lot of free lunches for me because over the years I have turned so many friends onto it that just love it. Recently, I heard from an attorney friend. I helped him set up his Squarespace site 10 years ago, and he's still using it. He's so happy. It's very affordable, but he's been able to make and adjust it over the years to be exactly what he wants. And he said he owed me lunch, so I took him up on that. Seriously, though, I've saved him a ton of money over the years with an excellent website that he can control himself. Whether it's for you or a friend, head to squarespace.com and sign up for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/MPU to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/MPU when you decide to sign up to get that 10% off your first purchase and to show your support for the Mac Power Users. Our thanks to Squarespace for their support of the Mac Power Users and all of Relay FM.
David, there were a set of headlines recently that really grabbed my attention. I thought this is something that I need to talk to David Sparks about. And that is something called Stream Deck Kit, which is effectively going to bring the Stream Deck to the iPad. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially a Stream Deck API. So if you're making an iPad app, you can address a Stream Deck. Historically, Stream Deck attaches to your Mac. It's got its own software, and then that software runs triggers on your Mac, whether it be through shortcuts or Keyboard Maestro or whatever, just keyboard commands. So it's a much simpler model on the Mac. Because of the way the iPad's locked down, you can't do that. You can't make a Stream Deck app on the iPad that's going to, start and stop your video in Final Cut. It just, you can't address another app from an app. That's kind of the way iPad is built.
Right.
So what you do is have a software developer say, Final Cut could, although I doubt they will, they could take Stream Deck Kit and say, okay, well, we're going to let you push buttons on your Stream Kit to, cut video or apply filters or whatever in Final Cut. I think this is much more likely something on third-party software. And I think it largely would make sense in a production level application or maybe a streaming application on iPad. But I don't think it's going to be widely adopted. We'll just have to wait and see. Maybe I'll be wrong about that, but I'm not holding my breath that we're all going to be plugging our Stream Decks into our iPads anytime soon.
No, I think that's about right. The beauty of the Stream Deck is that macOS basically just sees it as an input device. But like you said, the iPad is not built that way, for better or for worse. And so I could see some, specific use cases for this on the iPad, but I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be widespread.
Yeah. And then you found this great article at The Verge about the Stream Deck, how it rose from the ashes of a legendary keyboard. And there was this thing, we'll put a link in. It's worth a read if you have any interest in the Stream Deck. But there was a keyboard called the Optimus keyboard that was the same technology as a Stream Deck. It was a screen behind keys, so you could have it, realign itself and add features. And it was kind of a bust, was very expensive. But at the same time, Elgato was looking for a new product, and they realized that online gameplay videos was a thing, and then they wanted to get into that, and they harnessed this technology to build a Stream Deck. Although I would argue that the other part of this story is not just that the gamers picked it up. I think the automators and the power users are also a big reason for the ultimate success of the Stream Deck.
Oh, yeah. I think the fact that you can make it whatever you want it to be is really powerful, right?
Yeah.
That you and I and 10 listeners can all have Stream Decks and have them doing all different things is really cool. And so it can become an extension of what you do on your computer. And that's awesome. I had forgotten all about this keyboard, but when I saw this article, it came like flooding back in my memory. I mean, it was 20 years ago. And looking at it now, it's clear that it was kind of a bananas idea. But I'm glad the technology survived long enough to get us where we are now.
Yeah. And it's funny because my Stream Deck story was, I thought it was dumb, a piece of plastic with a bunch of chintzy keys on it. And as I was working on the Keyboard Maestro Field Guide, Peter released a update to allow you to use Stream Deck buttons to trigger automations. And I'm like, well, I'll go ahead and order one and shoot some video on it for the Field Guide. I fully intended to send it back. I'm like, there's no way I would actually want one of these things. And man, it was like, once I started using it, for whatever reason, this pushed my buttons, literally. And then the story goes on from there. Although I will say, I did buy the more recent one just because I can't help myself. They came out, with the new, what they call it, the Stream Deck Neo, which is meant to be kind of like an entry level, lower price one. And I'm not sure I needed it. I feel like I might have one too many Stream Decks, if that's possible.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How many do you have?
Do I have to answer that?
You did recently. I blacked out.
Okay.
Trying to remember.
All right. Well, I'll answer that two ways. The first answer is I have 5. I have the Neo, 2 pluses, the plus, 2 of the big ones, I forget what they call that, and the pedal. But more interestingly, I have, 64 plus 72. I have to do the math, guys. Plus, I have 83 buttons available to me.
Seems like enough.
Including 3 on the pedal. So there you go. Yeah, I have too many. That's the answer. I have too many. But great device. Use it daily, all the time. Makes so many things easier. And I hear from people, because I talk about this in the labs and here, who say, "Yeah, you kept talking about it. I finally got one, and I get it." It's like they're just really useful to have a convenient button in front of your keyboard that you can press to make a bunch of stuff happen. And especially if you're listening and you go down the automation rabbit hole, it's so useful. Like even just like I've got a button here, I push it and the light goes on outside my door so people know I'm recording and they don't come in and bug me. It's like, and I can turn the light off just as easily. There's so many things I can do with this thing, but this is not a Stream Deck show, so I will stop. We heard from listener Chase, and it was kind of a disturbing email. His home got broken into while he was there, and a bunch of Apple gear was stolen. And but Chase is, I know him; he's a friend, and he's okay. Everything's okay. but he's also very practical, and he gave some good advice about things that happen when people steal a bunch of your stuff. And I thought it was worth sharing. The first one is when your driver's license is stolen, go to the DMV with a copy of the police report, and they'll allow you to obtain a new number. I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah, me neither.
This might be a state by state thing. I don't know, but the point is the bad guys got your license number, so now you have a new one, and it helps reduce identity theft. I thought that was pretty good. Another one was, carbon. He uses carbon copy cloner. Enable APFS encryption on your backup targets. Yes.
This actually prompted me to do this. I was still running Carbon Copy Cloner 6, and when we got this email and was in the show notes, like, you know what, this is something I should do, because my nightly clone of my MacBook Pro is, I don't know, 5 inches away from the MacBook Pro. Like, I don't have it, hidden away somewhere. And so I turned on that encryption, and it makes it really easy to do, which is really nice.
I get this email from people occasionally saying, should I encrypt my backups? And my answer is always yes.
Yeah.
I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, obviously be responsible and know your passwords to unencrypt it. But like, I have one that goes off site, and it's at a friend's house. And if their house gets broken into and somebody steals that, they're going to have all my data except for the fact that I encrypted it. And I encrypt all those backup drives. That to me is like a rule. And Chase's externals were not stolen because they were out of sight. But it's just a good reminder. If you have backups attached that are unencrypted, likely your data is going to get stolen. I mean, no, it's not likely it's going to get stolen, but if it gets stolen, they're going to get it. And that's not good. Another one at Chase's AirTags work, but he didn't go after them because it's probably not a good idea to go knock on somebody's door and said, "Why did you break into my house?"
Yeah, don't do that.
The one that concerned me most was he had Ring cameras in his house, and he says the footage is low quality, and the burglars wore reflective vests, which blew out the images taken by an infrared camera. It's like, these people are getting smart.
That was also the most upsetting part to me, is someone who has a couple of Ring cameras around the outside of his house. Yikes. We are so glad, Chase, that you and your family are okay. That is super scary. But it's good to be prepared, right? You don't need to live life in fear, but having some things like your backups encrypted and or offsite, like those are important things. And we often talk about backup in terms of catastrophe, right? Like a tree falls through your house or it burns down, but the break-in thing is also really real. And, if you live in a dorm or in an apartment where you share, space with other people, it's potentially even more important. So take the time, make sure your backups are encrypted. With Time Machine, it's just there in the Time Machine settings. I've been running encrypted Time Machine for a long time, and I've restored from it. Like, it's been totally fine. You just, have the password. I save that password in 1Password with my others, and can go in there and decrypt it when I need to. It's not like it's bugging you as you're backing up, right? It's basically just in the background, and I never really think about it, but I know that it's safe and sound. So if someone has that disk, they don't have my data, because if it's not encrypted, basically they have your entire file directory, right? Just as it was on your computer, without a login password, without anything else, and that's really scary. And so take the time to encrypt those backups, people. You think you'll feel much better.
Yep. Yeah, and update Carbon Copy Cloner if you haven't. Something I did after reading this is I went and checked on my cameras. I bought these Eufy exterior cameras, part of the Indoor Studios build, and also I put one out in front of my garage. But they have lights attached to them. They're like the little spotlights you put outside your house that are motion sensitive, but they've got a camera in them. And the good news with that is they'll light up a subject if somebody comes around my house. And I was looking at the coverage, and I think I'm pretty good. Honestly, my house is it's like a fortress of cameras. The neighbors, like, we had something happen in the neighborhood. One of the neighbors said, "Hey, did any of your cameras point at this?" And the way he said it, it sounded a little accusatory. But the fact is, I don't know. Every time there's like an Amazon Prime sale or something, I put another camera. I have indoor cameras, but they never work except when none of us are home. Like
Yeah.
I've got that turned on in the Apple camera controls, but the outdoor cameras, man, there's a lot of coverage. And the main thing I do with them is see wildlife. But if somebody came to break in the house, they would definitely be, even if they were in vests, they would definitely be lit up, and I would get pictures of them. Is that any use? I don't know. I mean, apparently you get air tags now. People, where they go, where they live. You got pictures of them. I don't know if that's enough to get people to go pick them up or not. But yeah. Well, like I said, like you said, glad you're okay, Jason. Thanks for sharing that. A few additional thoughts on this. Offsite backups are a good thing.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think Chase got lucky that his drives weren't taken. Having them out of sight is a good idea, but having it also backed up with Backblaze or those, drives. Like I still keep a set of spinning hard drives off site, safe and sound somewhere else.
Yeah, I have two that I rotate. One is hidden in the house, and the other one is at a friend's house. And then just like once a month, I swap them.
Mm-hmm.
And those aren't as up to date as like my Backblaze update, but they're pretty close. It's done once a month. Apple ID management is important when stuff like this is happening. Apple, it makes it pretty easy to check into your Apple ID. AppleID.apple.com. I think they just changed the name of it though.
Yeah, it's Apple account now in iOS 18.
Yeah, that's right. But go in there. If something gets stolen, you can go in there and turn it off, or throw the switches for the devices that have been taken. Talk about activation lock, Stephen.
Yeah, so activation lock is a feature across Apple's devices that is tied to Find My. It's automatically turned on when you enable Find My. And it means that an Apple device checks in with Apple to see if it can be reset, basically. And so what this means is that if a device is lost or stolen, then no one else can basically authenticate that device to their account. There's a couple things in here, and again, we'll have some links in the show notes, but if something is lost or stolen, you should mark it as lost in the Find My app. And this sets your screen with a passcode and lets you display a custom message, like with your phone number, for say you left on the bus and a Good Samaritan finds it, then they could get in touch with you. An activation lock means that it is more difficult for someone to use or sell your missing device. And I think the idea is generally to make these devices less attractive to people who would resell a stolen device. I don't know how true that is in the real world, but since I have Find My on everything, I have this on for everything, and I've never run into issues with it. There are times where it can be problematic if you sell a device and don't deactivate it correctly. The new owner can be stuck in a situation where they can't activate it, even though it is now rightly their own. And Apple has some processes in place for that. Again, there'll be links in the show notes where you can basically prove that from the original owner to you is a chain of custody, if you will. But I have this on, and for me, the I guess potential like downside of I could run into issues. That's fine by me. I think this is an important feature to have on, and the occasional downside of like I have to enter my Apple ID password to log out of a device. It's not that big of a deal.
I think that's just good advice.
Yeah.
Put passwords on your backups. Put tracking on your stuff. Apple put all this stuff in for a reason, and again, I'm sure we'll hear from other listeners that have break-in stories. We're not going to make this a regular bit, but I thought this was an opportunity to kind of just remind everyone to be careful out there.
This episode of MPU is brought to you by 1Password. Go to onepassword.com/MPU to learn more. One of my favorite things about 1Password is that the tool is always under development. Just this summer, really just a couple of weeks ago, they had a big update. And with this update, brought logins and credit cards that are now auto-saved. So we've all gone through the workflow. You're signing up for a new account, or logging into an account maybe you haven't stored in 1Password, and you used to be prompted to save the login credentials before you would be authenticated. And if that went wrong, you kind of fell into this loop where like you were trying to update to the new password for an online account while also saving it in 1Password. They've made all that much easier now. And the other thing is they've now have autosave for credit cards. So if you enter a new credit card in the browser, 1Password will offer to save it. This is really awesome, and yet another way that 1Password continues to make their product better over time. Of course, 1Password is the tool that David and I both use to keep our logins and other critical data safe and secure. And with 1Password for families and teams, we can share those logins with those closest to us. 1Password works across your entire range of devices. So not only your Mac and PC, but of course your phone, your tablet, Android phones, the web, basically any place you could log into something, 1Password will be there ready to help. One of my favorite features is the ability to create and store banking information. I often need to send someone a routing or account number to get paid for the company. And instead of having to look it up every time or keeping it someplace less secure, it's safe and sound, encrypted neatly in 1Password. Head on over to onepassword.com/MPU to learn more and to sign up for a free 30-day trial. When you do, you'll get 20% off. That's onepassword.com/MPU.
Hey, let's talk about the stuff we're bringing to London. Both of us are heading out there. We're both making it a relatively short trip. I thought it would be interesting, with the caveat that you are actually, I guess, recording this show, so you probably actually have a lot more gear than I do on this trip.
Yeah, hopefully recording the show. We're working with I guess this is in past tense now when this comes out. Very confusing. But working with the venue to record it off the soundboard. So I am taking my MacBook Pro so I can record, hopefully get good audio so we can release it to everybody. So I am traveling with the MacBook Pro. I am not traveling with the iPad, just sort of in the hierarchy of things, because it's also a family trip. We got kids stuff with us. The iPad just isn't going to make the cut, so the iPad will stay at home. So the MacBook Pro will be my computing device while I'm there.
I am just bringing my iPad. I haven't done that for a while, but it's a light trip. All the stuff that I need to do for the labs is done. The newsletter is written, the videos that I need to record. There's no way I'm going to actually be recording screencasts on the trip.
Right.
And it's weird for me because most times I go out of town, I always bring my laptop, but I decided this time to leave it home and I just see how it goes. Keeping it simple.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how that goes for you. I don't plan on doing much work outside of the live show, but when word came down from Mike, who's planned this event, that we had the opportunity to record it, I knew that the Mac was going to be along for the ride.
The other thing is I'm just not bringing a lot of gear otherwise either. I have some extra cameras that normally when I would go to London, I would do that. But when I look at my schedule, there's just no time to really be a tourist. I'm hoping to get into the British Museum at some point, but between getting over jet lag for a day or two and doing my obligations with Relay, that's basically it, and then I'm going to come home. So I'm not bringing the tourist rig either.
Yeah.
So I'm really going simple. The one thing I am bringing is I've got a little Rode USB-C mic for my iPhone. And I do the Lab Report podcast for the labs. And if I need to record audio, I thought, well, this will takes almost no space and it'll give me a little bit better audio. But yeah, I am going super light and it'll be a fun experiment for me. But I don't anticipate any problems. I can get a lot of work done on an iPad if I need to. And I don't really think I need to do a lot of work.
Yeah, I want to hear about that, how that goes. I'm not taking any other sound gear, which is nice. The venue is providing basically USB connection. So I'm just going to plug it in and use Audio Hijack is my plan. So no interface, no microphones, nothing like that, which is really nice not to travel with sound gear. I also did this for WWDC. I did not record a single show at WWDC. I recorded both MPU and Connected once I was home. And pretty nice not to carry a suitcase full of cables and get pulled over at every airport you stop in. So
Yeah.
Traveling light is the way to go.
Yeah. Well, when you can.
When you can.
Yeah. Stuff we're playing with. Stephen, you bought a thing that I am really curious about. Tell us about your purchase.
Yes, I was influenced greatly by David Pierce at The Verge, as were many other people, I think, given the response I've seen to this article. And this is a product that also Jason Snell has written about, the Boox Palma. This is, the easiest way to describe it is an e-ink iPod Touch running Android. So it's phone sized, it's phone shaped, runs e-ink. So it's no LCD, no OLED. It's e-ink, black and white e-ink at that. It is backlit, which is nice. And it runs Android. So you can just put Android apps on it. And I don't know, I saw this article and I was like, this is something that I want to try. And so I bought one and put a bunch of reading apps on it. And I got to say, it's a pretty great size if you want to read more on e-ink and have something to carry around with you.
There's a thing now with this idea of an Android, brain on an e-ink device. And they make them like iPad size. They make them iPhone size. There's a lot of people doing this. Mike Schmitz over on Focus Podcast has one. And I don't remember which model he bought. He bought something too, but his is bigger, so it's more of an iPad size thing. But a lot of people really like that if you do a lot of reading on it. And I cannot get behind this stuff. For whatever reason, I've tried. I bought the Remarkable 2?
Yeah.
And sent it back twice. Mm-hmm. I think I'm on a list over there. When Mike got into this, he said, "Oh, you should get one." And I'm staying away because for whatever reason, I just can't get into them. I feel like, I spent all this money on the iPad. The iPad is my device of this sort. And when I saw this one, I feel like I spent all this money on an iPhone. And to the extent I want to read on it, the iPhone's fine for me to read on it. And, but I know that people really get into this stuff. And I think I'm a little bit of the weirdo here because I know a lot of nerds who really dig these things. What's the case? What's the argument for it?
I think it's twofold. I think, first of all, a lot of people, including me, really like the experience of reading on e-ink. It's easy on your eyes for a longer period of time. The way the lighting is, now the Kindles are edge lit, and that may be how the Boox is. I mentioned earlier it's backlit. I'm not sure in its case, but the lighting is easier on your eyes as well. But I think there's something too about the Android brain means you're not just limited to what that vendor has to offer. So like, right, the Kindle is in the Amazon ecosystem, right? The Kindle books, the e-reader, it's all in one. It all works really well together. But then if you have an EPUB from somewhere else or a PDF from somewhere else or an article, then you're kind of jumping through hoops to get that content onto your Kindle. And in some ways, that's harder than it used to be in the past. And with this thing and others, like what Mike has, you have the whole Google Play Store there. And so on mine, I have the Kindle app because that's where most of my books are. But I also have Libby to get things from the library, Readwise Reader, which I am using. I'm replacing Good Links with Readwise Reader in my sort of save it later workflow, partially because of this app, and a couple other reading apps. And it's kind of nice having sort of all the things I could read on one device that also makes it really nice to read on.
When do you carry it around with you? I mean,
yeah, so like on this trip, it's in the top pocket of my backpack. And other than that, it's been living on my nightstand where my Kindle lives. But just the other day, like I went for a bike ride to the park and I was going to read for a while. And so I had it just in my pocket on my bike ride. And the Kindle would not allow for that because of its size. But this thing is iPhone sized. And so I had my phone, and this, and was able to read for a while because it's e-ink. It's great outside. And it was pretty sweet. It kind of unlocks, if you read a lot on e-ink, or like for me being a Kindle user for a long, long, long time now, it unlocks that experience in some new and interesting ways.
I have the Kindle, the big size. So I went the opposite direction. I got the big size Kindle. I forget what the jumbo Kindle, whatever they call it. It's got really good screen resolution, and I like to read on it with that. But I'm not attracted to these small ones. And on a more general level, I feel like my piece of glass that I carry around is just going to be an iPad or an iPhone.
Yeah.
And by adding additional devices, I'm just adding additional friction to my life. That's kind of, but it took me a while to get there because there's a part of me that wants to love these things, but it's just not for me. And every time it comes up on the show, I get a bunch of email from people saying, "Oh, you don't understand. Let me explain what I'm doing with it." And I'm not telling you that it's a bad thing or that you shouldn't love yours, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't land with me. My big new thing was inspired on our last feedback show. Amazon Prime Day did come, and I bought 2 UPSs.
All right.
Yeah. So I'm now legit, Stephen. I took your advice about cyber power. I got a big one for the production desk, and I've got everything plugged into it. One of the questions I was going to ask you is, how do you ever run any power strips through your UPS?
I've got one power strip on mine at my desk. It's not on one of the battery protected outlets, or the battery will run it. It's just on one of the surge protected outlets. And it's basically for just like a bunch of small stuff. So like my Studio Neat dock that I have on my desk, right? It's an iPhone. It has the flat one for AirPods and the watch. Like that all runs through there, right? That can be fine. It doesn't have to run on battery. The lamp on my desk, that sort of thing. So I think it's fine to do that. I'm not sure I would do it on the outlets that are powered by the battery, but for other stuff, I don't see why it would be bad, but maybe I'm wrong.
I wanted your advice on it. I heard that you're not supposed to do that, but I got little 4-foot extension cords, and I ran the Mac and the Pro Display and down to the power unit directly. The challenge I have is I've got a desk that goes up and down, so the native cords aren't long enough to go directly into it, and with cord maintenance, they just definitely weren't long enough. But I ran the little 4-footers up the desk leg, and now I'm good. And so the Mac itself and the Pro Display is into it, but then I've got a power strip underneath, which is powering all the Stream Decks and the Mix Pre and some of the the iPhone charger stuff. And I felt like, I think I'm okay, even though people say you're not supposed to do that, but they don't draw a lot of energy. Another thing it's powering is my OWC backup drive. And I don't know if I'm making a mistake, like maybe I should run some of these cords, get some more 4-footers and run some of these cords directly into the device or not. But I didn't know also that plugging into the battery is bad, because I currently have them plugged into the battery. So maybe that's bad. I was hoping you'd have a definitive answer for me. I need to research this. So that's kind of a headache when you get one of these things, is you've got to like extend your cords.
Yeah.
And the other little one I just plugged in directly where the router and all that stuff is, just like you. And so in general, I'm in good shape, but I still haven't got the cord situation entirely buckled down.
Yeah. I will give a shout out to those short little extension cords. I've got a couple that are like, I think maybe 8 inches long. They have them where the heads swivel. They have them where they're straight out. They have them 90 degrees. Like a lot of different ways to make it work. And they're extremely useful, especially on something like a battery backup or even a tight surge protector where you're using a lot of power bricks and you're kind of losing real estate because of the bricks.
Yeah.
It can be a nice way to gain some of that room back, because you plug the little extension cord in and the brick or whatever is kind of dangling off of that on the floor somewhere and not taking up valuable real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's, I'm back on track here. I really felt like I needed to do it, but I just couldn't get around to it. And the fact that I run this Mac Studio now means that just an interruption for just a second is going to cause probably data loss if I'm not careful. So, I mean, it was obvious that I needed to do it. And because we were so close to Amazon Prime Day when I committed, I just waited. And I did get a healthy discount by waiting. Yeah. Did you buy any other Amazon Prime stuff?
I didn't. I know. I really didn't have a need for much. I'd already kind of done some stuff for London already, a couple of battery packs and stuff. So I was good to go.
I have a desire to upgrade my robot vac. The one I have is 6 or 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I've replaced the battery once, and they've just got a lot better. And now they have them like with integrated mops.
Yeah.
And they look really cool. And I just can't make up my mind which one to get. And I haven't gone down the rabbit hole far enough. So at one point I had one in my cart. The Eufy makes one that looks really cool, but it was super expensive and it wasn't on sale. And I just said, no, I can't afford this. So I canceled it. I didn't order it. But I'm going to be looking at those for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I do. I run my robot vacuum every day and I love it, but there's a part of me that would like to upgrade it.
Yeah. We have one. It's a few years old now. It's a Roomba brand, but it has the thing where it empties itself into the stand, and then every once in a while you just
nice.
empty the stand out. Because we have a dog and a cat, and so a lot of what ours picks up is fur, like under the couch or whatever.
Yeah.
And before the one we had before that, we were just emptying it all the time. Like to run it through the whole house would be an all day affair because we're having to empty it every I don't know how many minutes. Very often it felt like. And so when we upgraded, probably on Prime Day a couple of years ago, I sprung for the one with the tower and the self-emptying thing, and it really makes it a much more hands-off affair.
Well, that's on my list. Maybe next year.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes those brands just do sales anyway. So, maybe plug that thing into Camel and see what happens.
Yeah, maybe I need to do that. Well, either way, we are the Mac Power Users. We want to thank you for listening. We always enjoy these feedback shows. Hopefully you got something good out of it today. Thank you to our sponsors at Ecamm, Squarespace, and 1Password. And thank you to our supporters, our More Power User supporters. If you know somebody young that may benefit from that productivity summer camp, look at the link in the show notes and send them my way. I'd love to hear from them. And we'll see you next time.